reporting live from KMWorld 2023 in Washington, D.C., and Enterprise Search and Discovery. I'm joined here for a short interview by Sid Probstein, President and Founder of Swirl.
Yes.
Welcome to the Neural Search Talks show. Can you explain us a little bit what you guys do at Swirl?
So Swirl is a meta search engine. It takes your question, the user's question, and adapts it for various configured sources without moving any data, sends the question to the search or query API for each of those systems, asynchronously gets back all the results, then it rescores them using a reader large language model, figuring out which are the best, most relevant items, and it presents them. And frankly, you can stop there, right? That's the search use case, finding the best results across sources. However, at that point, you can review the results and you could choose to exclude or include additional results based on your knowledge. And you can click a button and initiate a retrieval augmented generation or get an AI summary or answer to your question using the data that was retrieved in the that first meta search step. And so that's what Swirl does. It's an open source product, so you can actually try it from our GitHub. You can check out our website, www.swirl today, and the links are all there.
Great. So
thanks for the plug.
I think that's a fascinating, different concept. It's slightly contrarian, right? I mean, there are many AI-centric search companies here at the show, and most of them put an emphasis on using neural embeddings and neural re-rankers to really improve the search quality.
Yes.
And what you're essentially saying is keep the data where it is, use existing infrastructure, and just put meta search on top of it. So, yeah, how does that kind of, how do those two sides play out in terms of search quality?
Well, I think it's a judgment. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's no need for embeddings or vector search. In fact, we're big fans of those things, right? We use those techniques. The only question is, do you need to, in order to take advantage of AI, does a business need to start by copying all the data it just moved to the cloud into a new vector database? I think the answer to that question is definitely not. But if you have a corpus, a set of data that's under your control and that you're not getting great retrieval from, and your AI depends on, particularly being fed maybe long sections of it, you maybe have lots of long documents, I think there's certainly a case to be made there. If you're in e-commerce, you should try every search engine, right, to make sure if you get slightly better acceptance rate, right, conversion rate, I think it's an amazing arms race. And maybe that's the point. There probably will be an evolution over time. Some of the vector engines will be good at certain use cases. Others will, maybe they'll be good at many, but they'll end up doing some use cases, and others will do others. In the meantime, the people who already have your data in Postgres or Elasticsearch or Solr, they've all added embedding support. You can add embedding support from open source for many of these projects too. So I think the search is going to get better and better. And maybe the thing to do, think about with vector databases is maybe in certain corpora of data for particular sources, right, that you really do need to do very crisp retrieval on. There'll be a place for it, right? It's another tool. And right. I think that's my point. My only argument, and I've worked at many companies that price per gigabyte in the past, right? Companies like Fast and Ativio. It's not the only answer. I think the truth is you can get more value from AI today by using your existing silos. And what Swirl's been able to show is you can actually get very good results using a reader LLM post-processing the results, even if one silo or another isn't great.
So can you go a little bit into, so one of the main things that neural search solves over keyword search is kind of recall-oriented searches, right? Like related words, synonyms.
Right. And there have been many great examples thrown around.
So in your approach, do you actually kind of enrich the queries for different searchers with auto-generated synonyms if they don't support neural search natively?
Oh, absolutely. So first, some of the older search indexes, they have lexicons, ontologies, taxonomies. They'll rewrite non-preferred terms into preferred terms. There's actually a lot of intelligence buried in many of the enterprise or individual search silos in the enterprise. So for one thing, you're going to want to take advantage of those. So you can do that. The second is absolutely. So we're focused on the query or the question. We actually have a hook so you can call your generative AI or your reader, right, to identify the most relevant parts of a query, to rewrite the query to a Boolean, to make it fuzzy or less fuzzy. And these are the kinds of things where much as you have to tune a search application, right, to go from the 80% that looks okay, but most users will reject, to get to that, 90+% where it's really answering the questions, you're still going to have to do tuning. But the key is, and I think a number of different people who presented talking about neural search have made the point, it's not that easy to figure out how to re-entitle all of the documents from all of those different repositories. And if I guess the answer is, if those repositories got smarter in a year, right, about things like word meanings and embeddings, and maybe, today you can take a bunch of open source embeddings and upgrade your Elasticsearch. If they were to have a multi-language embedding, right, that would be another step forward. So
basically you're saying like upgrade what you have, don't replace it.
And
right?
I think there's going to be a continuum. Some of the newer data, maybe you will put in a new database or in a new architecture. Maybe it will be about upgrading a lot of the existing ones where the data, maybe it's static or it's not changing that often. And then, of course, we're not going to take all of our data out of OneDrive. So no matter how much we might dislike it, right? And we have to hope that OneDrive gets better.
So in some sense, Swirl is agnostic to both the language models and the embeddings and the underlying search engines that you use. You just kind of integration layer that ties it together.
We absolutely. So we have our own, uniqueness and IP, if you will, in the way that we do the reader LLM and the way that we do prompt engineering. But ultimately, we were here at the Enterprise Search and Discovery Conference, and I think we've heard at least 10 times, there are many different generative AIs. There's an arms race right now in that, and every week it seems like some new incredible announcement happens. So Swirl focuses on getting the data that you have without having to move it and delivering it, hey, first to your end users. I made the point when I was talking a little bit about this at my talk, I was trying to make the point, I guess, if the users can't find the information to answer the query, how is the AI going to find it unless you give it everything?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Maybe someday.
Yeah,
that's the.
And so I think it's really cool that you guys have made Swirl partially open source. I think that's a very important direction for the future of AI development, also in enterprise. What are, apart from AI, which has really been kind of the overarching theme of this year's conference when you compare it to last year's, probably. What are some of the other interesting topics that you've witnessed here at the conference?
That's a great question. I actually we were talking about this, Adam and I were talking about this the other day, that we're pleasantly surprised here at the search conference that people are still interested in search.
Right.
Humans finding and reading the documents, much as maybe you and I, we spend a little too much time with our heads in the AI world, and I'm blown away by the answers. And I actually use OpenAI and Swirl every day to answer questions. I just figured out what our insurance policy level was in cyber, right? I didn't have to read the documents. I got the answer. It was right. I even checked it. But the truth is, most people are not quite there yet.
Yeah.
They're still thinking, how do we apply this to our business? What's the benefit? Where's the right place? And they still realize, though, that they spend more time going from tab to tab and summarizing information than they do actually using it. And so there's actually a wonderful renaissance. Perhaps we can say we can thank the chat GPTs and AI for this. People really want better information, right?
I think what we're seeing is that AI is putting knowledge management practices more center stage in organizations, because they can be the champions of delivering this AI to the workforce. Absolutely. And at the same time, generative AI or retrieval augmented generation is kind of the champion of search quality, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a very wonderful time to be in, because
I love that point.
Before, people were like really frustrated with enterprise search, but they were not going to do anything about it. Now they have a really good motivation for it. It's definitely a different world than a year ago. Looking at next year's conference, it's going to be here again in Washington, D.C.
Right.
So what are some of your predictions for that conference?
I think that there will be more people at the AI side of the conference next year. I think that search will have made a bit of a transition from being a technology that's used to find results in a very traditional search response. I think it's going to be different. People are going to perceive interactivity as being much more of a requirement. And perhaps if it improves enough and we can deal with hallucinations well enough, right? I think there will be a mainstream acceptance of AI as a additional layer.
Yeah, no longer kind of experimenting, prototyping, but the workhorse of knowledge management in the enterprise.
That's right. A real-time saver that people will trust, at least to a varying degree, more than they do today. That's for sure. I think today it's novelty with potential.
Yeah.
And when people harness it over the next year, then they will crystallize the use cases that will frankly make a huge difference in their lives.
Looking forward to that.
Same,
Thanks, Sid, for
great to talk
us.
to you. Thank you so much for inviting me.